Okay, hello everybody, and welcome to this online webinar, how to scale and deliver advisory in your accounting firm with Microsoft Power BI. So thank you very much for making the effort and time to sit in on this session. I think you'll find it really useful, and I'm really excited to share it with you. My name's Cam from Atani. I'm going to be your host for today, and I'm joined by Alan and Dan. So just a quick overview of today's proceedings. I'm going to kick things off with an introduction to business intelligence, and I want to give you a run through of the appeal and the comparisons in the market currently. Then I'm going to pass you along to Alan. Alan is a corporate trainer. He's an accountant by trade, and he's helping accountants in the commerce sector and the practice sector in this transition from accountant to finance business partner. I think you're going to find it really useful. Dan's going to speak next. Dan heads up PT 2.0, which is part of Power Tynan. It's a part of the Walker Whaling Group up in Queensland. And Dan right now is executing Power BI and BI analysis in his firm. So I think you'll find it really interesting to hear what he has to say about the challenges he's faced, the observations that he's seeing, and the opportunities he's had. Then we'll bring it back to me for some live examples. I really want to hit home on the operational side of things. So we're going to be talking about Workflow Max and Deer inventory as examples in this section. And then I'll also bring it back to a Xero example as well, and show the scalability for your SMEs on how you deliver it. We'll end with any questions that you guys might have in the session. So yeah, leave your questions to the end, and me, Dan, and Alan will all stay on the line until everybody's satisfied and feels comfortable that they have a better understanding of how this ecosystem is working. So background about me, I'm a chartered accountant. I've worked in mid-tier, small tier, and commerce. My story is actually about implementing change in the accounting industry. So I initiated BankLink back in the day. I've outsourced self-managed superannuation funds out of an accounting firm. I've been involved in the trialing of electronic working papers. I've offshored accounting services to the Philippines. So I'm really passionate about this industry and the development of it. I think that this is the next chapter. I really do. I'm so rapt that so many of you have registered for this event and are interested in learning about it, and I'm able to share it with you. So thank you all for being here. So quick poll just to gauge where everyone's at. I just am launching a poll on your screen. I'll just leave it open for 30 seconds. If I can just get as many of you out there to answer it, let me just share that result with you. So a bit of a spread, as you can see. We've got a really good showing today, so interesting results coming through. It looks like there's lots of people who are delivering it. They're aware of it. It's great. Okay, I'll hide that poll. Power BI, Microsoft Power BI. It is a BI tool. There's lots of BI tools out there in the market. Why Microsoft Power BI? Well, this is Gartner, okay? This is called the Magic Quadrant, and Gartner just basically ranks all the BI tools that are in the market, and this is why I choose Microsoft Power BI. It's the best, okay? It's not only the best, as you can see from last year to this year, it's moving away from the pack, and Microsoft is tipping enormous resources into it. The other reason I really think it's important for you guys to be using this Microsoft Power BI is that it's actually an extension of Excel. So there's lots of familiarity for you. You'll be surprised at how the Microsoft suite of services, you'll be picking up things that you already know. Okay, so they're the two reasons why Microsoft Power BI. Position-wise, for those of you who are not aware, I like to compare it to Spotlight, Futurely, Fathom, Calxa. I would assume all of you in the room would be aware of these and using them in some manner. And that's what Power BI is. It is an analytics tool that you use to deliver reports and dashboards to your SME client base, okay? That's what it's used for. But what's its appeal is where I really want to touch on the appeal. I've broken it down into two spots. One, you can build anything. So the custom nature of Power BI is what sets it apart. You actually download Power BI from the website. It's like a program like Word or Excel, and not on a website. And so you can still have your templates, but you can rip those templates apart and then make them your templates going forward for your firm. That's the power here. It's your canvas to play. You'll see more of how that works later on in my live demonstration. The second point is the data sources. So Power BI is your hub for data. Operational, and then even accounting, Xero, QuickBooks, MYOB, ERPs, CRMs. You can even bring website data in, like the Bureau of Meteorology, if you wanted to look at sales based on a seasonal business. The power to be able to bring in the data that you need to deliver that to your client base, like what they need to be aware of, is so powerful. And that's why I brought up those 2 points and hit home. So that's all from me as an introduction. I just wanted to give you an introduction and just position it well. I didn't want to spend too much time. So I'm going to pass you across to Alan. So Alan, do you want to jump on the line there, turn your screen share and microphone on?
Thank you. So you should be able to see my screen now. Great. So hi folks, and today I just want to open with firstly of a question of, does your team know that their role is to help their clients make better decisions? Because that's what you want to do. You want to help your clients make better decisions and drive the business forward. So I want to take you through 3 things today, and that's the difference between accountants and finance business partners, the skill set to go from accountants to finance business partners, and I'll briefly talk about the journey to delivering advisory services. So let's start off with accountants. And you know, in the past, we've been very kind of inward looking, and it's just about the numbers. You know, here's your P&L, here's your balance sheet, here's your cash flow. And these reports are kind of it. But, you know, how useful are financial statements really in driving improved performance? You know, what insights can you gain from a P&L? Sure, you can see the variance to budget, but how does that help you make a better decision at an operational level for your clients? Then we have the business, and the business, on the other hand, lives on the cold face. Let's take a pub. You know, how are you going to improve what's really important to the business? Sales are down, but knowing a high level variance isn't advice or help. The business needs to know how to improve the sales, and they need to know about the drivers of their sales, how they can identify things and how they can then improve it. So the third part is then the strategy. What is it your client actually wants? Where do they want to go? You know, is the owner of a business in a position where they want to play offense or they want to play defense? If it's a new business, they're going to have one type of strategy for, you know, getting new clients, acquisitions, building partnerships, finding new lines of revenue. And you compare that to a mature business, they may want to play defense. So it's a different strategy. They may be on top of their niche and they just want to hold that position. So to advise a business to make better decisions and drive it forward, you need to find that sweet spot of the better decisions. And that's what finance business partnering really is. And that's what you need to help you deliver advisory services. And overall today, we are talking about how to use Power BI to deliver advisory services. But if you've heard of Garry Kasparov, he's a chess player who famously took on IBM's Deep Blue. And I was recently reading his book called Deep Thinking. And he asked a question. In a game of chess, what is better than a human or a computer? Well, it's actually the two of them together are far stronger. And that's why today, as we look at Power BI, we're actually going to look at the human skills you need to get the best leverage from Power BI in order to deliver great advisory services. So let's go through some of those now. So talk about driving value and how we drive value and what's the difference between an accountant, an analyst, and then the business partner in terms of what they provide and also the skills required to deliver that value. So first up, we have our accountants at the bottom and kind of delivering what has actually happened. And this is, accountants and their tables of numbers. And let's take an example of a report on variances. Salaries were over budget, and in the commentary, that's kind of all the accountant is going to tell you, and it's not insightful in the sense of driving business at an operational level. And look, it's not accountants' fault. Accountants, we're trained to be accountants. We're trained to produce the numbers and not necessarily use them. I trained as a financial accountant back in Ireland's largest company, and that's what my training was, to just produce the numbers. But of course, times have changed, and a lot of the routine has been automated, and Power BI is doing a lot of amazing things and is capable of so much. And that's what actually frees up the accountant from producing the numbers, then having the time to use the numbers. So if we move on to then the analyst, they start with why. When they look at commentary, they start to dig deeper. If we look at our salaries are behind budget, say we're a small manufacturer, why are salaries behind budget? Well, we had to pay for overtime. Why? The machines keep breaking down, so we had to work Saturdays to fulfill customer orders. Well, why are the machines breaking down? Well, they're not reliable. Why? Well, they're old machines. So your commentary automatically improves by asking the 5 whys. It becomes salaries are behind budget as machine downtime caused overtime. And Cam will touch on, as he mentioned, Workflow Max later, and that being an integrated data set to your Power BI would let you easily see what manufacturing lines are causing overtime, etc., and makes asking the why a lot easier. And then we move on to so what. So what that there's overtime? So what the machines keep breaking down? What is the actual impact of this? Well, if we keep using these machines, the forecasted overtime bill for the remainder of the year will be, X amount. You would then go and you could compare that to the cost of replacing the machines, and that would be highly useful to a client. And then along with that, we also have analysis structure. So there's a few more things we can do on top of the pyramid layout, like more elements where we can improve the impact of our analysis. And that's writing analysis that actually drives action. Because when we communicate to clients, whether it's a report or an email, you need to be able to tell people what you need from them. So continuing with the example of salaries behind budget, what you need from your stakeholders to decide whether they want to buy new machines or not. There's no point making someone read all of your analysis with the decision part at the end. No, you want to front and center decisions needed on new machines. You frame the message for your reader, then they can continue to the detail if needed. And then we get to the real value add stuff, the partnering and looking at now what, like whether there is a solution or a next step. That's kind of the biggest difference between accountants and someone who is an advisor and a finance business partner. And isn't that really the definition of an advisor? Someone who gives advice on what you should do and what needs to happen, but not what needs to happen, but what you should do about it. I'm not saying advisors need to have all the answers to all the problems that your clients are going to have, but knowing to discuss the next steps, discuss options, work through issues to get to solutions, they're completely different conversations than only discussing what has happened. So a few skills to touch on here. Firstly, we have listening to needs. And recently I was in a meeting with an IT provider for a large corporate. I was doing some consulting, and the IT provider started off and he said, this meeting is all about you and your needs and where I can help you. He then proceeded to do 90% of the talking for the entire meeting. And this isn't a way to understand your client. So we spoke earlier about the strategies of business and if the owner is playing offense or defense. And to really understand the client, their business and their problems, you need to ask the right questions and ask probably more questions. Then you just need to stop talking and listen. but know when to probe a little deeper to get past the kind of the first level needs and through to clients' desires. And initially clients should be doing most of the talking in that regard. And then once you've done your analysis and you know what your clients' goals are, you can start to really problem solve effectively. And I just want to touch on one technique here, because there's so many techniques for problem solving. Because accountants, we initially struggle with is, what we struggle with is brainstorming probably ideas, and the activity of brainstorming in a group is like kryptonite to an accountant. I know, because I've been there. The worst version of brainstorming I've seen was at a corporate event, groups of 10 accountants being told to stand in a circle and generate ideas out loud to each other. And believe me, it was as painful as it sounds. But there's a simple way to help groups generate more ideas and better ideas, and for people to be happy to contribute. And that might just be one-on-one with a client, or maybe a few employees and with clients. But you define the problem, and then you simply give people time on their own with pen and paper and let them work through ideas. And importantly, they get to cull all their bad ideas, and then they'll be happy to put forward their best ideas after they've had some time to ponder on them. And then the next thing we want to talk about is developing opportunities. Because wouldn't it be great if your advisors could ring your clients and tell them that they're aware of some opportunities they might be interested in? And to do that, we need to look at what activities can your people undertake to be across potential commercial opportunities. What media do they need to be consuming? What do they need to be, where do they need to be networking? Most importantly, are they setting aside time to be alert to opportunities? And let's face it, it's hard to be across opportunities if you're always doing something else. And then the last thing I want to come to in terms of skill sets is presenting ideas. So you've done, all that hard work, but accountants are often afraid of presenting to groups, big or small. And I've learned that it's not actually presenting that's the scary part. If I asked you to tell a group of people why your kids are great, that's pretty easy. But when you have to present a new idea or a solution, that's when the nerves kick in. Why? Because you're standing in public and you're going to be judged. Like, I can't really judge you when you tell me about your kids, but your ideas or your solutions, you bet, people are going to judge. So to be a better presenter, communicator, and influencer, you need to have some go-to people to run your ideas by. And for example, any part of my new keynote speeches, they first get delivered in my living room to my better half and the dog. And believe me, they both know how to sniff out rubbish ideas. So these are just some of the main finance business partnering skills you would need to deliver advisory services. Obviously, there's a lot more and there's a lot more depth to them, but that's it at a kind of a high level. So the last slide I want to touch on today is the journey. So the journey from being, accountants, and the journey to delivering advisory services. And first, of course, you need to be across Power BI and understand what it's capable of in order to offer those services to your clients, and to know what problems you can solve when, know what problems you can solve when you're speaking to them. But the journey to advisory or Power BI, it's not just a turnkey solution. Going back to our great chess player Gary Kasparov, in order to maximize the technology benefits, you need to invest in your people to have and deliver those advisory services. And that's when then, if you have the system and the people together, that's when you can get to that recurring revenue built off the back of Power BI and built off the back of Power BI. And I'm just swapping here. Built off Power BI and the actual advisory services, you're going to get to that recurring revenue when you can leverage those two things together. And isn't that where we all want to get to? And now I'm going to pass over to Dan. So Dan, if you can turn on your mic.
Fantastic, fantastic. Okay, that should be coming up now. G'day guys, I'm Dan. Look, I'm director of PT2 and we are an analysis firm up in Toowoomba, Queensland. So we use analytics and people to solve operational and strategic problems. We work with SMEs and their accountants, so we're working with a lot of accounting firms and their clients on how do we use data and analytics to provide insight, efficiency, accountability, and strategy. So we do a lot in the manufacturing, retail, wholesale, agricultural areas. Now, where I want to start today is around the 3 different levels of reporting that we normally talk about and how Power BI fits into this whole scheme. So look, when we talk reporting, we talk about lists of facts. So, we've got information on a page that gives you ribs of data to have a look through and find out what's going on. Now, a lot of firms love reporting, and look, it does add value. Just from my point of view and what I've done for the last 15 years is that it's an inefficient way to present information to clients. There's a lot of time and effort needed to digest information. Now, analysis, and this is going on the back of what Alan said, it's about taking information and distilling the why. Like, why did this happen? Why did that happen? Till you get down to the actual problem. So you clear away the data and you start looking at the underlying highlights. And this is where I often put Power BI in as the place to start looking at this kind of things. Moving to the future, we start talking about predictive analytics, and this is where it starts getting really cool for the future and become more prevalent as we go over time. So predictive analytics is about trying to use past information to then predict what the future holds for the business. So I was working with a business a couple of weeks ago, and we were doing a predictive cash flow. Okay, so we're looking at all the jobs in their pipeline, when they were expected to be finished, what their job cycle was, how their debtors, like their individual debtors, what payment terms they normally pay on, not what the business asks them to pay on. And we came up with a probability cash flow. So it was able to look forward to say, hey, here's the upcoming cash inflows, and we were able to then model with their budgets the cash outflows to give them real-time predictive cash flow analysis. And look, this is the kind of stuff that is becoming more prevalent, that we're starting to see organisations wanting to deliver to their clients is being able to take this insight to drive it forward. So to give an accounting example of those 3 different levels, we've got reporting. So quite often we'll have firms sit there and say, hey, I'm going to do an analysis of my client base. So I'm going to do my reporting, say at a family group or debtor level, what the size of the invoices we've generated, what the average invoice is, what the write-offs. When we go past that reporting stage, we start looking at analysis. And analysis is, well, is this client making us money or costing us money? Why did the profitability decrease? And going back to the why statement, is the profitability could be decreasing because of a number of factors. It might not be because of the client's work. It could be because there was training involved, there was extra resource, there was system downtime. So this then helps us drill down the report down to the analysis. What was the effect of increased technical training? We invest in our people. What's the ROI that we get out of it? And predictive analysis, we can move into things like, if we remove the bottom 20% of least profitable clients, what would that do to, how would our workflow look? How would our team engagement scores work if they knew they weren't having a kitchen table work or have write-offs, or the volume of the work? What would happen to the quality of the work and the ability to target new work and services? So when I sit and talk to firms about Power BI, I like to talk about the analysis dream. And the analysis dream is something that we're getting close to grasping, and we've already ticked off 2 of the major points on it. But businesses today have sufficient data. We're collecting more data than ever before. It's sitting there in systems like Workflow Max and Xero and Deer and hundreds of other systems, whether they're cloud-based or on-premises. And we've now got tools that make it easy to analyze. You've got your Power BI, and you've got all the other tools that Cam put up initially. Now, if I was to look 5 years ago, a lot of these tools would be costing you tens of thousands of dollars a month. Nowadays, they're a hell of a lot more affordable, and you can do a lot more with it. But I still think there's a few problems that we need to address, which is what I'm largely going to talk about today, which is cleanliness of data, mindset, which is a massive, massive one in my mind, and actually getting business problems that link with strategy. So data cleanliness. Now, everyone, I always hear an audible groan when I start talking about data cleaning. But to tell you the truth, I give quite a few talks to accountants, accounting firms, accounting groups, banks, and clean data is probably the one that people want to talk about, but they don't want to talk about. The amount of analysis or the quality of the analysis that you can do with Power BI, even in Excel. Excel is the original analysis tool. The quality of the data will dictate how good the analysis actually is. So, I believe that the accuracy of the data is paramount to moving forward. And if the data is not clean, it has a twofold effect. Firstly, your clients don't believe the analysis that you're giving them. Okay, they dismiss it and they say, no, that can't be right. And away they go. And secondly, your team then starts saying, oh, well, if the data's not right, there's no use doing this. We've got to get all of this done. Oh, we just won't use the tool. It requires a very proactive approach, and it requires a growth mindset to go and actually address the issue. And it's not just me saying that data accuracy is important. So we're always looking out for what's happening in the industry, the trends, and what we see others doing. One paper I was reading not so long ago said up to 32% of the data in your organization is missing, incomplete, incorrect, or inconsistent, which is when you consider how many hundreds of thousands of data points accounting firms have, and then how many millions they've got around their clients, is a concerning factor. And Ovum research reckons that companies lose about 30% of revenue to poor data quality. Look, personally, I think that this situation is going to get worse. We've got some firms that are actively trying to improve their data quality, and they'll be able to take this forward. Others, if you stick your head in the sand, it's only going to get worse. I'm a believer into the future that your data's your gold, okay? If you don't protect it, if you don't clean it, keep it in good condition, then you're not going to have an asset there in the future to work with. And if you don't know how to clean it, reach out and ask. It's something that we do with many firms, and there are many ways to reduce the time. It doesn't have to become bigger than Ben-Hur. So what I see a lot of firms do is that they collect data, but it's got no strategic intent. Okay, so they collect everything just in case. Other firms will, for the best of intentions, they'll duplicate data out of systems so that everything is in one system. They'll bring across data into other systems, but then it gets out of date. No one knows where the source of truth is. Tools like Power BI, as Cam was talking about, allows us to integrate these data sets so that you're not duplicating data, but you're using data in the right situation. And if you are duplicating data between systems, automate it. Make sure that it's regular and updated, or we find that people tend not to trust it and not use it, and it loses any convenience factor. We find a lot of firms never have a data review policy. So, the data went in there 10 years ago about a client, no one has reviewed it since then, and no wonder there's issues with it being up to date or not. There's also ways you can verify certain data against external data sources. So we encourage people to do that where we can, look, and so on and so on and so on. Probably the biggest thing is that when people finally decide, we're going to clean our data, we're going to do this analysis piece, they spend hours and hours grinding through data. And I've done exercises with using Power BI to clean data. Using a logical, rational approach to cleaning data will save time. So I'm going to leave the data piece, but data's an asset. But not all data is created equal. Personally, I prefer to collect less but more relevant data. And data integrity is about having the right data at the right time, telling us the right story. The best time to take action is now. If you wait till tomorrow, tomorrow never comes, and then you want to sit down there and you want to do some of the things that Cameron will show you, it might not be easily doable, so start thinking about that now. Mindset. Mindset is a big one, and it's obviously become a big talking point in recent times as well. Look, analysis isn't a byproduct, it's the intent that we've all got to take a journey on. And I think that as an advisory community, we need to think about how we take data to information and then information to knowledge. So what I'm saying is taking it from facts to information with context to insights about that data. Now, a lot of firms aren't in that mindset. They're in let's go reporting, and I know that not every firm is like that, and we've got quite a few that have the mindset of, yep, there's got to be a better way to do this. And to tell you the truth, if you're on this call, you're probably already thinking about, hey, we know that there's an issue. We know that we need to leverage information, or at least you're looking for ways we can. At the moment, I believe that there's a competitive advantage in being able to do this for your clients. You know, to give an example, we've helped a few different firms when they've been presenting to new clients, and they're differentiating themselves by having an analysis service as part of their suite. And they've used it to show the clients that what they're doing isn't just reporting, but it's taking it the next step further. Even if the clients never actually want that service, it's still putting in their mind that, okay, this firm's doing something a bit different. Now, that advantage won't last forever, but right now, quick moving firms, I believe that there is a considerable competitive advantage. Insight versus reporting. Look, working with a lot of clients, we had one client who came to us and they said their gut's telling them one thing, reporting's telling them something different. What's the right answer here? And you know, our first instinct is to always go and say, oh, let's just go and analyze the data. But a lot of the times it comes down to people and process as well. So, you know, we've got to be really, really careful that at the end of all of this is people and at the beginning of all of this is people. And you actually need to step through with your clients. And this is why this is an advisory service, because you're offering advice to clients on a holistic approach. So we found for this particular business that fear was driving their decisions, not logic. So we were able to, by talking to the people, create the data model to show them what they were thinking and why they were actually making the wrong decisions in certain situations. So in this kind of scenario, the data told the story, but the people explained the reason. So I'm just going to say that again. The data told the story, but the people explained the reason. And that's very much where we tend to try and use Power BI, is it doesn't make decisions, it makes recommendations for people. Far too often we treat these as tools. You know, we deploy it, we let it run, you know, you let it sit there in the background, it does its little thing, automatically calculating, pulling data, everything else like that. But the real value in all of this actually comes from the advice that the businesses can get out of the information. And so that means we actually need to engage people. That means we need to continuously engage people. You know, Alan talked about Power BI turning into recurring revenue. It does become recurring revenue, but based on the advice that you give and the actions that get driven from that advice. The next big thing, and Alan also touched on this as well, was investment versus cost. Look, a lot of the time, if there's any resistance to an analytics project, and this is either from an accounting firm or from a client, is, you know, what's the cost of doing one of these projects? And, you know, what's the cost of platforms? And, you know, to tell you the truth, the platforms themselves are very, very cost effective. The advice that comes out of it, it's like anything. It's how do you move from an accountant to a partner? Yeah, what are the skills that you've got to learn to be able to leverage it for your clients? So mastery takes practice, practice takes time, time is an investment, and an investment needs a return on investment. So look, a lot of the projects that we do with clients and with firms, the ROI on a lot of these projects is actually measured in mere months. You know, it's not years that it takes to pay this back. In fact, one project that we had, the payback period was hours, because we were able to see some trends and highlights that the client was completely unaware of, and they were able to change and make decisions immediately that saved them well over the price of the project. So look at the value, don't look at the cost when you look at these things. Finally, the biggest mindset thing that I often get from people is it's too hard. You know, that this Power BI thing, it's for IT guys, and it's for propeller heads who that's all they've ever done in their life. But realistically, accountants are analysts. We've just always looked at financial data. Now we need to look at the operational data and how we can integrate that together for the business. So, you know, it's the first time you learn how to do a sum or an if statement, it was hard, it took time. But once you've made that investment of time, it exponentially increased how productive you were in dealing with data. Power BI is no different. There is time and effort, there's a commitment required, there's a mindset change required, but the payback is massive. Personally, for most of my reporting, I was the biggest Excel fan in the world. I used to even write letters in Excel. I was that hardcore in Excel, and nowadays 90+% of my reporting is all done through Power BI because it's a better tool for the job that we're trying to do. So change that mindset of it being too hard. So next thing is just defining the problem. I'm just going to touch on this very, very quickly. A lot of the times we don't have an analysis problem, we've got a problem identification issue. And it's drilling down to those whys as to what's the real problem that needs to be addressed, and how does that link into the strategy. So Power BI can bring it all together. You can bring the mindset, but you've got to have the clean data to bring it together. Here are some of my quick insights from doing this for the last 15 years in business analysis. Not everything's worth measuring. It has to be relevant here and now or into the future. Some of the best insights do come from your gut, but people often don't believe it until they see the proof. Sometimes people don't believe the insights even with proof, and that's okay. Okay. Some people don't jump to conclusions. Just because it looks like a trend doesn't mean it actually is. Garbage in, garbage out, data cleanliness needs to become an organizational mantra, not the responsibility of a few key people. And it's okay to be uncomfortable with the results that you get given. Problems really do drive opportunity. That's both for yourself and for your clients. And finally, data doesn't drive organizations, people do. And it's way too easy to use it as a tool and only a tool. Cam, I'll pass back over to you to run through some of your live stuff.
So hopefully now, I'll just double check that you've got the right screen. Great. All right, live demonstration time, guys. We're going to go through a couple of operational data sources, Workflow Max and DIA, and then I'm going to touch on Xero as well, and just how you can scale this in Power BI, because I think that's really important as well, is that we are dealing with SME, so you've got to be able to scale it fast across your client base. You can't spend hours and hours and hours on one client, okay? So Workflow Max, as an example, just first, before I touch on Workflow Max, I just want to show you the Yatani system and how you actually bring a data source in like Workflow Max. So this is a content management system that you would have in an accounting firm, and this is XYZ Chartered Accountants, okay? So you would add in your list of clients, and we're gonna be dealing with Old Man Online Clothing in this example, okay? So you go into Old Man Online Clothing, and here is where you invite your users. So the CEO, the bookkeeper, the board of directors, whoever it might be, who you want in the system to be sharing these reports to, okay? Third-party applications, here is the list of data sources that you bring in. So you simply point and shoot at what data you want for what client, and you can do consolidation, multiple operational sources, whatever you need to do, okay? That brings you live data flowing into the system, okay? Straight out the bat. Let's talk operational. I am so big on operational. I mean, I just spend so much time on it now because of the value that I'm seeing from it. So when I show you Workflow Max, think of it as just a service-based business. So there's other service-based businesses here. What do they have in a service business? What matters? Timesheets matter, okay? So think of SimPro. SimPro for the tradies. Once again, timesheets are critical. How long is your plumbers and your electricians, how long are the juniors taking to get their job done, and how much are you invoicing? So in this example, we're looking at Workflow Max. This is a great example of how you can look at a high level at sales and drill right down to the core of it, okay? So we're looking at the financial year 19, year to date, okay? And here is a list of your clients, okay? Total sales, invoices raised in the period. Let's drill down and I'll show you what you can do. So we're gonna drill down into Amazon. What's inside Amazon out of Workflow Max is the company, Jeff Bezos super fund, the trust, the individuals. This is where you're invoicing people. Let's keep drilling down into Amazon Limited. Now we've got all the jobs that have been raised. So along the columns here, we've got sales, as in invoices raised. We've also got chargeable hours that the staff have put against the clock. So I want to highlight this one here, 59 hours for only six grand of sales, 105 charge out rate. Average charge out rate of 105 is too low. So this is about being able to identify problems and go down the rabbit hole. We go down into this particular job, and here's Samantha Ryan, 36 hours at a charge out rate. So she's likely, in this circumstance, if we were using this as the accounting firm, Samantha Ryan, we don't know why. Maybe it was a bad client, X, Y, Z. Maybe we should have been charging more. It was a disaster from the beginning. It doesn't really matter why. That's the next part of it. This is about identifying that there's a problem there and then finding out why next, okay? Immense power in this. Timesheets in Workflow Max don't go into Xero. Only the invoices do. So that raw data is so valuable, this type of analysis, and this applies across the board with other data sources in operational land for service businesses, okay? So that's Workflow Max. We've got lots of templates that you can play with. That's a very popular one for the accountant, but then you can actually pull back and look at it at a high level as KPI focuses, as a KPI focus as well. So average charge rate over the entire firm. You move the goalposts of financial year. Who's got chargeable hours? So Samantha Ryan's got chargeable hours, but that's where you set in your KPI. So Samantha Ryan might need to be 80% chargeable and have write-offs of whatever it might be, okay? Okay, so I'm gonna leave that on service-based businesses, and I'm going to next show you product business, okay? These are the two popular businesses that I like to discuss, service business and product. So I'm gonna use Deer Inventory. Deer Inventory is a very popular inventory management system. It taps into the back of Xero, QuickBooks, MYOB, I think. And I'm showing Deer, but you know, Unleashed is another one that's very popular. Counter is popular for online hospitality. What is the beauty of going to the operational source with this? What is the underlying thing that we want? Profit margins. We get, when we sell something in Deer, we get the line item that says how much we sold it for and then the cost of goods sold. What tips into the back of Xero on QuickBooks is not that. It is actually general ledger movement of cost of goods. We don't have the actual cost of goods sold down at a product level. And that is so powerful. To have that information, have a look at this example about the way that we can look at profit margins across our entire business, 32.2%, but then we literally drill down into New South Wales and we can get a much better feel of how New South Wales is going. So profit margins, it looks like entertainment profit margins on entertainment for whatever reason are better in New South Wales, okay? Service businesses, timesheets. Product businesses, profit margins. Salespeople with profit margins. Who's actually selling things at a better margin in different states or to different types of customers? The insight, because you've got the underlying data source, is so powerful. And I promise you that the SME that are consuming this right now can't believe what they're getting. I mean, to be able to get this type of analysis and be able to play with it and look for problems or understand more about the problem that they feel in their gut, terrific, absolutely powerful stuff. Okay, So I'm going to show you now an example with Xero. So I'm just going to drag Power BI desktop onto the screen. So hopefully you can see that. This is Power BI desktop. This is where you do all your analysis. Okay, so same process with this example. You bring in Xero for that particular client, and then it spits out a heap of templates. So you can see along the bottom all the different Atani templates that come out of that library: customer analysis, scenario analysis, a lot of budgeting stuff. What I want to illustrate here is the custom nature of a template and the scalability of it. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to select, for example, that net profit one, get it off the page. All right, I'm going to select the cumulative sales. I'm going to bring it across the page and put it to take over the page. All right, I don't want quarterly, so I'm going to delete quarterly out. Okay, and I'm also going to copy paste the financial year. Something that's very popular in Xero is tracking categories. So if I come down to the tracking categories, okay, and I'm going to drag option name into that spot there. All right, so what that's going to replace with is your tracking category that you were using there. And this is quite a common one, is to distribute sales by location. Okay, so if we drill down into Queensland now, it goes from 2.47 million and updates to, and the whole page updates. Now we're slicing by tracking categories, okay, 355K. Okay, so let's just pretend that we've spent an hour developing this custom template. We've used an existing template and then we've built on it and made it our own. What I want you to picture with this is possibly building out something with Xero. In this example, maybe you're building out a profit and loss that has EBITDA and some variance analysis that means something important to you, total sales divided, total wages divided by total sales, or whatever KPIs. We've just spent a heap of time building it. Or another good example is if you were dealing with SimPro and you wanted to be known in the industry for helping tradies, okay? Scalability, so watch this. Now that I've done that custom solution, I'm going to go into my list of clients that are in my system, okay? And what will come up when that comes up here is a list of all your clients. I'm going to come down to test client 19, and I'm going to grab the Xero demo company. So what you're looking at right there was Old Man Online Clothing. It was a different Xero company, it's a different Xero organization. We're now flipping it to the Xero demo company. And in 15 seconds, it's just loading now the new data. And what you'll see coming up on the screen, you see it loading, see it doing its spin, is the new data. So give it one more moment. There we go. Okay, so New Mexico, far, far away. These are all the tracking categories for the Xero demo company, okay? There's no data in the Xero demo company. We'll just switch it over. If you switch it over to financial year 19, you'll get that data flowing. But whoa, I mean, that should just blow your mind if you haven't seen Power BI. The scalability of custom solutions and being able to use that template that you designed in your accounting firm and scale it across your client base is so powerful. I mean, that is just unbelievable how you can do that. And this is one of the reasons that I'm so big on Power BI, okay? All right, so that's the end of those live demonstrations. I just want to come back to our discussions. Hopefully you can see my screen again. You might be thinking, is this Big Four stuff? And answer to your question is no, it's not Big Four stuff. In fact, Dan, who's just spoken, has told me that he gets referrals from the Big Four because they're too expensive. Their charge-out rates are too high to be able to handle this type of work with the SME. So we are meant to be doing this, okay? Just a couple of testimonials. What I like to point out, Steve's obviously in the mid-tier, but Michael down below in the bottom left, they are a two-partner practice. This movement into Power BI is driven not by resources, but by direction of the director, the passion to go down this path. That is what drives it, okay? So size, I don't think matters. I'm seeing small firms execute right now, okay? My last point that I wanted to touch on is the Atani offering. Running Power BI by yourself is really, really tough. There's a lot of blockades. and I've seen a lot fall down trying to do it themselves. That's where Atani comes in and we help you. Okay, so I've broken it down for you into 4 areas of how we help you, the accounting firm. 1, the integration. So I touched on that with the Workflow Max example, how I showed you how you can just create a client, connect up Workflow Max, and then we just give you live data every hour. We're refreshing that data for you. Done. Okay, so you can deliver live data. Secondly, the training in Power BI. How do you use it? So we've got online training available for you so you can make your way through and understand how the system works. We have this way of describing accountants as data champions and dashboard champions. Who's going to get really behind the bolts and who's going to be just a dashboard champion who shifts things around and makes it present how they want to present it, okay? Thirdly is the templates, the Atani template library. So for all of these different data sources that you can connect up to, SimPro and DIA and Xero, Quickbooks, MYOB, NetSuite, whatever it might be, then we just give you a model, all right, that you can get straight out of the bat. List of templates, away you go. So we get you straight into the system, okay? Last point is distribution. I don't believe that clients should be in Power BI. So what we offer for every accounting firm is your own custom mobile app that's available for download on the Apple App Store and Google Play Store and desktop. It is a protection of your IP, okay, which I think is really important. You don't want to be spending hours of time building custom solutions where they take your work down the road to John, the other accounting firm. You need to protect your IP, okay? Secondly, it's quite costly with Power BI having clients in the system. It's $12.70 per month per client. So you might be thinking $12.70, that's not much. It actually adds up per client. You think a CEO, a bookkeeper, a couple of board of directors and a manager, that's 5 times $12.70 each month, one single client. That's really expensive. So that's the other reason why we go through your own custom application like this. We don't actually invite them into the system of Power BI. We just let them consume the reports and dashboards that you create for them. Thirdly, marketing. So it's obviously quite a strong marketing play to develop, to distribute your reports and dashboards through your own custom branded mobile application, okay? So that's where Atani fits in, and I thought that was really important to point that out, and so that you have a better understanding. So we've come to the conclusion of today's webinar. I hope that you found it all really useful. Me and Dan and Alan are all going to stay on the line if you wanted to shoot through any questions. Dan and Alan, if you wanted to jump back on the line. And otherwise, we'll close it off and I'll just open up the question panel to handle any questions that you guys might have. Oh, here we go. Sorry, I've got it. Okay. All right. Sorry, there's lots of questions. So, first question, is Power BI an add-on tool that is compatible with most accounting and project management softwares? No, I mean, Power BI itself is a tool that leaves the door open to bring in lots of different data sources, okay? But there's always going to be time where you need help, and there's lots of players out there. So, say, for example, I mean, a lot of cloud-based, you're going to hit the popular ones. So the popular ones on the market are going to be available all over the place. When you have data that's sort of located on a desktop that's quite old, like DOS style and stuff, that's probably where you're going to need somebody's help to bring that data on. If you want to pipe it up from a server that's based on premise, then you can use gateways and things. So that was from Jaslyn. I hope I pronounced your name right. Let me just see. Sean says hi. Okay. Can we use Power BI for CRM management? Dan, do you want to handle that question? You've done a bit with the CRM side of things.
Yeah, so absolutely you can. Look, we've done a bit of work with different CRMs. Look, essentially the way Power BI works is reporting. So as long as you've got the data, you can use it. So we've brought things in from Sugar CRM, from Xero for people out there using APS. We've multiple. So as long as there's an API, a connector, or a database, yeah, you can do reporting, pipeline, analysis. We do ourselves internally as well. So yeah, no, absolutely.
Okay, thanks, Dan. So Sean, from previous attempts to use it with Xero, I understand the refresh is slow and is also that the data made available for use in Power BI is restricted to not all fields. So that was something I didn't actually touch on, Sean, but it's really important that to share this. The pre-existing Xero connection with Power BI is not an option to go down this path. If you are looking at using Power BI with that existing connection, I say stick with your existing software. Don't go down that path. There is so many limitations with that pre-existing connector between Xero and Power BI. It actually puts people off using it. You can't access the data model. It's actually limited with what it's actually giving you. People have problems with refreshing. I know for a fact that Dan is constantly complaining about it being a disastrous marketing play for us because it makes Power BI and Xero look bad. They should close it down or fix it, I think is the attitude. Dan, is that right?
Yeah. Look, one of the really simple things like budgets don't come through. So if you're trying to run anything for a client, budgets are essential. So no, the existing one, you can join with me though. Happy to take people's names because I want to talk to Xero about enhancing some of it, but even then, we're not getting past the data refresh issues and things like that. So even if we can bring more data through.
And that's where Atani steps in. We actually go straight to the Xero API, and we're using Azure Data Factory. We're using enterprise grade API integrations to give you that live data flowing through regularly and accurately, okay? So, okay. Yeah, what do we got at the top? Thanks, guys, really appreciate it. Congrats. Is the Atani platform a direct connection to the data, or is it an import only connection? Yeah, so we move all the data sources into your own Azure data database, and then you work with that out of Power BI. So I think that answered your question. Hi guys, how do we access the recording of today's? You'll be emailed a copy of the recording of this session, okay? Okay. So what is the cost of the Atani platform? So the entry level is $4.99 a month, and that gives you access to 50 clients in the system, and the integration, the platform, the mobile application for you, okay? We've tried the Xero integration, but it's been limited. Okay, so yeah, we've already talked about that. That's a common theme. Okay. So are you saying with Atani you can get access to all the fields in Xero? That's correct. So we bring in anything that's coming out of the Xero API, we are bringing across for you. And that includes the budgeting data, that includes the line items of invoices. We also have the Xero payroll API as well. So you can bring in Xero payroll and the Xero accounting data both, all right? And it's just turnkey, it can quickly be set up. Thanks. Yes, put me on. Okay, I reckon we're looking pretty good, guys. If any other questions wanted to come through. Dan Beck, how do you price your services? Somebody's asked.
Yep, so look, how we do it is we'll come and do a scoping session with you. So we've got
sorry, Dan, he said EG for data cleaning exercise.
Yep, so similar kind of thing. So we'll do a bit of a scoping session with you, have a look at the data sets, work out where the data is incorrect. We've got a few different tools for a few different systems that make that easy straight out of the box. And then from there, we'll just have a bit of a discussion about what's involved, who's going to clean and things like that. So no obligation on that scoping session, and we'll give you a fixed price to do it.
Right. All right. I think that is I'm just running over trying to tick them off. Can we help you? Is there an issue with bringing data from MYOB Advanced? So Atani doesn't have a MYOB Advanced connection. We've got the MYOB account right, but there is other people in the ecosystem that are building connections to MYOB Advanced. Okay, so what Atani does is we do not block you from any other data, which is quite common. So we leave the door open for consultants to come in from all areas and build different integrations because we can't cover them all. We're trying to cover the most popular ones, but say, for example, MYOB Advanced is not on our radar at this point in time. and there are people out there that can do that for you, and you just pipe it into the workspace that you're working with. So there's no issues with that. And Dan, I think you've worked with some helping custom solutions like that as well. Is that correct?
Yep, so we've done some MYOB Advanced work with a few firms, and there's some great data streams that can come from MYOB Advanced. They just need to be enabled and the right data accessed through them. So yeah, there's definitely potential there for MYOB Advanced.
Right. Okay, guys, I think I've ticked everything off. If anyone's got any further questions, otherwise we're 4 minutes over, so we'll close this out. Just leave it open for 10 more seconds if anyone else wanted to ask any further questions. We will be sending you through an email with the contact details of everybody and how you can get in contact if you want to reach out and discuss anything further on this. All right, I think we're done, guys. All right, well thank you very much, Dan. Thank you very much, Alan. Much appreciated, and thanks everybody for joining today. I hope you found it really useful, and we'll talk to you shortly. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.